Good evening. Right now, we'll see an affirmation from the book Affirmations for Self-Healing by Swami Kriyananda. And today's affirmation is about humility. I'll first read what Swami Kriyananda has written about humility. Humility is not self-depreciation. It is self-forgetfulness. It is knowing that God alone is the doer. It is the realization that nothing in this shadow world of appearances is all that important except as it draws us closer to the Lord. Never tell yourself that you are sinful or weak or incompetent or lazy, except as such statement may help you to surrender joyfully to God's power. Then live by that power. Never wear a mask of false humility. Humility is self-acceptance and self-honesty. You have a right to all power if you seek it in infinity, and if you never hold the thought that it resides in your little self. Now, Swami explains that humility is not self-depreciation. Often people do, in fact, even I have done that in the past, saying that misunderstood the concept of humility. And usually we self-depreciate ourselves. When somebody appreciates you, we say, oh, it's nothing, it's just I got lucky, or not accepting the fact that you're good at something is self-depreciation. But at the same time, when somebody appreciates, all you need to do is remember that God did that excellent work through you. And it is not you who have done that excellent work. So Swamiji also quotes about humility in the book New Path and in various other talks. Swamiji has given various examples of humility of great saints. And he also talks about the humility of our Guru Paramhansa Yogananda. In the book Conversations with Yogananda, he mentions about a story. He describes about a particular professor who visited Paramhansa Yogananda from Columbia University. The professor had a long list of questions. He went to Paramhansa Yogananda and he asked one question. And out of the many questions, one question which he asked was, how do you differentiate yourself from your disciples? How do you look at them? And Master gave a very interesting answer. He said, how one wave is different from another wave. Some waves might be tall, some waves might be short. But in essence, they both are sea, or they are both have the same quality. What Paramhansa Yogananda was saying is, he didn't identify his disciples different or are separate from him, or he didn't even identify himself as a person, as an ego. He rather identified everyone as a part of God. And he also, in his body, mind, and soul, knew that he was a part of God. And whenever a disciple touches Paramhansa Yogananda's feet and gets his blessing, he always kept his hand like this in front of the forehead, and the fingers pointing upward to God, saying that you are bowing, your pranam I offer to the God. And he also once quoted that I have killed Paramhansa Yogananda long time ago. Nobody but God lives in this temple. Once a group of disciples were helping Paramhansa Yogananda to walk because he hurt his foot. So when they were carrying him towards from the spot where he hurt his foot, he was helping him walk. So he thanked everybody, all of them who were holding him and helping him to walk, saying, "Thank you for your help." And all his disciples said, "No, Master, it is you who we should thank. You are the one helping us in a lot many ways." And Paramhansa Yogananda smiled and said, "God helps God." He really meant was God is the doer. Once we are aware of the fact that God is the doer and all the talents we have, all the possessions we have, is nothing but a borrowed energy or a borrowed gift from God. And it is His power that is acting through us every time. In fact, it is He who is throbbing behind our heart as we live. And if we are even aware of the fact that God is the doer, the humility, the right humility, we would be expressing that. A famous poet once said, "I am no different than my pen. My pen doesn't know what it writes, and I too do not know what I write, because whatever I write is given to me from God." Now they say that poet and the great saints, all the saints, always placed God before them. They never claimed that they were the healers. They were the people who made the miracles happen. They all gave the credit to God, and they practiced humility. And as Swami Kriyananda says, it is not self-depreciation, it is knowing that God alone is doer. So, how do we cultivate this habit? Well, initially, we may not be aware of this every single time, but Swamiji says that every night before going to sleep, we can offer all our success and failures to God. And once we continuously do that practice, gradually we will remember always that God is the doer, and the fruit of the actions also belongs to God. And this is not just a small technique to practice humility alone, but if done right, we can be free from karma, because we identify our actions with God, and the fruits of those actions are also belongs to God, and we merely become an instrument, a perfect instrument. Thereby we will not be accumulating any new karma. And Swami Kriyananda has also given an affirmation for humility. I will read the affirmation. The affirmation speaks about God as the doer. I live by thy power, Lord. What I have is ever thine, ever thine. So we'll repeat this affirmation. First, we will repeat it out loud to command the attention of our conscious mind. Then we will repeat it a few times in a lower voice so that we understand the meaning. And then in a whispering voice so that the meaning is embedded in our consciousness. And then finally, with our gaze uplifted, we affirm the same sentences mentally with complete concentration, each word soaked with meaning. Try to feel the meaning behind the word and utter it with full faith and concentration so that it registers in our superconscious mind, and thereby we can apply this the virtue of humility in every day, in day to day of our lives. Now, affirm with me. I live by thy power, Lord. What I have is ever thine, ever thine. I live by thy power, Lord. What I have is ever thine, ever thine. I live by thy power, Lord. What I have is ever thine, ever thine. I live by thy power, Lord. What I have is ever thine, ever thine. Now in a lower voice, I live by thy power, Lord. What I have is ever thine, ever thine. I live by thy power, Lord. What I have is ever thine, ever thine. I live by thy power, Lord. What I have is ever thine, ever thine. I live with thy power, Lord. What I have is ever thine, ever thine. Now in a whisper, I live by thy power, Lord. What I have is ever thine, ever thine. I live in thy power, Lord. What I have is ever thine, ever thine. I live in thy power, Lord. What I have is ever thine, ever thine. Now mentally only repeat it and project the meaning and feel the meaning at the point between the eyebrows. I live by thy power, Lord. What I have is ever thine. I live with thy power, Lord. What I have is ever thine, ever thine. I live with thy power, Lord. What I have is ever thine, ever thine. With full concentration, listen to this prayer. Thou art the doer, Lord, not I. Express thy perfection through me, as I strive ever eagerly to live in thy light. Om.